Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MAS Tech Community Sharing for Cybersecurity. My name is Bruno, and I'm from the HR department in MAS. I'll be your host for this session, and together with my colleagues, we will provide a glimpse into the cybersecurity space in MAS. For today's agenda, we'll kick off with a quick introduction of MAS, followed by a live sharing with my colleagues in cybersecurity. And we will end this session with steps you can take if you're keen to join us. Okay, so next slide, please. So how does MAS achieve its mission? And the mission is written over there on the slide. So as a central bank, MAS promotes sustained non-inflationary economic growth through the conduct of monetary policy and close macroeconomic surveillance and analysis. It manages Singapore's exchange rate, official foreign reserves, and liquidity in the banking sector. As an integrated supervisor, MAS fosters a sound financial services sector through its prudential oversight of all financial institutions, or FIs, in Singapore. And this includes the banks, the insurers, capital market intermediaries, financial advisors, and stock exchanges. We are also responsible for well-functioning financial markets, sound conduct, and investor education. As an industry developer, MAS works closely with the industry to promote Singapore as a dynamic international financial center. We facilitate the development of infrastructure, adoption of technology, and upgrading of skills in the financial industry. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering why cybersecurity is important in the financial sector. So maybe I'll share a bit more on this. A cyber attack can result in prolonged disruption of business activities. So threats are constantly present and evolving in sophistication. We cannot afford to be complacent. Financial institutions must therefore remain vigilant and have in place effective technology risk management practices and robust business continuity plans to ensure prompt and effective response and recovery. An area MAS has stepped up is the monitoring of the cyber threat landscape and issuing advisories to financial institutions to ensure their IT infrastructure is secure and resilient. This includes adoption of additional risk mitigating measures and precautions. Our cyber research and intelligence team scans the horizon and gathers intelligence from the public, private, and commercial sources to maintain visibility and situational awareness over the latest cyber threats confronting the financial sector. This is aided by our recently acquired Cyber Threat Intelligence Management System, or CTIMS, which automates the aggregation of all our intelligence feeds for pattern correlation, trend analysis, and presents the curated information and insights to the analysts for further assessment. I would now like to invite the cybersecurity panel to share more initiatives than what I just shared. So let's welcome our panelists. Can I have the next slide, please? Mr. Wong Pei Yuan is our Chief Information Security Officer. Mr. Chris Yao and Ms. Janice Kwok, they are both Deputy Directors from the Technology and Cyber Risk Supervision Department, which is also a department under the Technology Group. So before we begin, the questions I will pose to the panel will be a mix of questions we received earlier, and if time permits, we can take live questions as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them out in the comment section, and I will pose the question to the panel on your behalf. To start off this chat, we would like the panel to introduce themselves and also share their main responsibilities at MAS with us. I would like to invite Pei Yuan to start, and then the rest will take turns providing their response to the question. So can I have Pei Yuan, please?
Hi everyone. Can see me on the video? Because I can't see myself actually.
Yes, you're fine, Pei Yuan.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for having us today. This is Pei Yuan. I'm the CISO for MAS. I'm responsible for all things cyber within MAS as an organization. For us as a central bank, we run many critical systems, and of course we manage the country's reserves and so on. So we are actually a prime target for cyber attacks. So in order to protect all the IT systems and all that we have running in MAS, we really need to be very vigilant, like what Bruno said. So under my cybersecurity division, which I'm overseeing, we are responsible for everything ranging from detecting of threats, responding to them, compliance, as well as putting in place cybersecurity measures to prevent all these threats from affecting MAS in the first place. So it really covers the whole breadth of the different facets of cybersecurity, which we can share more downstream in more detail for subsequent questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Pei Yuan. So maybe I'd like to invite Chris to now introduce himself and also share his responsibilities. Chris, if you could.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. My name is Chris. I think as compared to Pei Yuan's responsibility, my role is more outwards facing, FIs facing, financial institutions facing. So I make sure that financial institutions in Singapore manage technology risk well. I lead the team of 4 specialists who conduct inspections on FIs to check that they have adequate controls to manage technology risks. This includes, for example, making sure that they've designed their internet and mobile banking platforms to be secure, to be resilient, to be reliable, and that they have adequate controls to protect sensitive data, right? Our NRIC number, our addresses, our bank account balance. I also develop regulations and guidelines on how FIs should manage technology risks so that they know what is expected of them and that they meet a minimal set of standards. As part of my responsibilities, I also check that FIs manage incidents appropriately. Now, from time to time, our FIs will encounter a disruption of their IT systems, or worse still, encounter a cyber attack. And so my job is to check on them and make sure that they responded to the incident appropriately, implemented the right remediation actions, so that similar incidents wouldn't happen again. So it's a very exciting and fulfilling role.
Thank you, Chris. So now I'd like to invite Janice. Janice, if you could introduce yourself and also share your responsibilities with us.
Thank you, Bruno. Hi, everyone. I'm Janice, and I'm from the same department as Chris, the Technology and Cyber Risk Supervision department. This is actually my second role at MES after joining the organization about 5 years ago. I joined from the private sector as a mid-career hire. So just to supplement a little bit on what Chris has shared, a little bit more color as to what our department and what I do. Our department is very multifaceted in what we do. Besides having a dedicated division that looks at technology risk supervision, we have another division where we have teams looking at research and intelligence, critical information, infrastructure protection, as well as cyber regulatory cooperation. And I'm in the team looking at cyber regulatory cooperation. Because of all our efforts in these different areas, MES has actually earned itself a seat in many of our international fora on cybersecurity. And my team looks after the international engagement piece. So this is where we represent MES at the different bilateral and multilateral forums to share our supervisory approach, learnings, best practices, and learn from like-minded regulators to further our interest in cybersecurity. Besides international work, our team is also heavily involved in management perspective, where we work closely with the relevant government agencies to support our financial institutions in implementing safe management measures, which includes supporting our nationwide efforts on contact tracing. So this is, in a nutshell, my role and my responsibilities. Back to you, Bruno.
Thanks, Janice. So I have another question regarding what you as an individual find most interesting in your work at MES, and really share with the audience what you enjoy the most, and probably, if possible, provide an example. So maybe for this question, I would like Janice to start.
Okay, happy to go again. I would say I enjoy how dynamic the work at MES is. Really, no 2 days are the same. This role practically marries two very dynamic things, international engagement and cybersecurity. I would say one of the most memorable experience in my time in TCRD is working on developing a cyber incident response and recovery toolkit under the auspices of the Financial Stability Board, or FSB, which essentially is an international body that makes recommendations to the global financial system. This working group is led by MES and chaired by our very own Deputy Managing Director for Financial Supervision, Chong T. And the mandate given to us is really to provide financial institutions with effective practices to respond and recover from a cyber incident. Given the interconnectedness of the financial sector, this is a key area of focus for the FSB, because a significant cyber incident, I think, Bruno, you mentioned a little bit earlier in your introduction, if it's not properly managed, could seriously disrupt the financial system and lead to broader financial stability implications. So personally, it is it was not only a memorable experience, but also a very rewarding one for me, coming from someone with a non-technical background. I got to learn from fellow regulators and cybersecurity practitioners from over about 35 member countries in the FSB, including major financial centers. So, as some of you know, there are many cybersecurity frameworks and standards that are adopted all over the world, and bringing such a diverse community together on the same page to develop, a practical toolkit for financial institutions, both big and small, is no mean feat. And yeah, I thought I'll just share this one memorable experience with everyone at the call. Thanks, Bruno.
So thanks, Janice. Thanks for sharing with us a perspective from a non-technical person. So maybe now I'd like to invite Chris. Chris, if you could share with us what you find most interesting about your work in MES, and if possible, provide an example.
Yeah, sure, Bruno. Well, I like that I have the opportunity to see how our biggest, most important FIs are managing technology risks, what controls they implement, what policies they adopt, what technologies they use. I like that we have the opportunity to see how different types of FIs are managing technology risks, the banks, the insurers, stock exchanges, the capital market services licensees. And I like that I'm always at the forefront of cyber risks. Now, FIs are very attractive targets for cyber criminals because criminals typically target where the money is. And so I get a lot of exposure in how cyber criminals are launching cyber attacks, how FIs are defending themselves, and who's winning in the battle of cybercrime. I recall there was a big cybersecurity incident in the financial sector a few years ago. One of our FI had failed to patch a security vulnerability on the systems, and that vulnerability was exploited by a cyber criminal to steal sensitive data. And so I have to work with the FI to put on my detective hat, work with the team to trace back what has happened, what was stolen, what contributed to the incident, and what the FI should do to prevent similar incidents from happening. So it's very exciting work, very challenging and very demanding at times, but also very fulfilling.
Right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for your sharing. Maybe now I'd like to invite Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan, would you share with us in your work what you find most interesting, as well as an example of it?
Yeah, thanks for that. Mark, echoing what Jenny said earlier, I think really in cybersecurity, no 2 days is the same. And especially, as I mentioned just now, being the central bank a prime target for the attacks, every day is, I'll say, very exciting for me and the team, because we are really inundated with tons and tons of attacks almost every single second, every single minute. All we need is really just one attack to succeed, and then there will be a lot of repercussions to the entire to MES and to the financial sector. So we really need to be on our toes. And while it may sound stressful, and it is stressful, I wouldn't hide that, but it is also at the same time very rewarding and enriching, because we really need to be able to understand all the threats that are coming at us from all over the world. They are literally from all over the world, and what impact they can cause if they really do breach through our many layers of defenses, how we can really enhance our intelligence so that we can preempt some of these attacks, as well, and put in place all the different cybersecurity controls and measures to be able to ward off these attacks, or even if we are breached. And as the saying goes in cybersecurity, it's not a matter of if but when we'll be breached. But when we are breached, we still need to be able to recover very fast, so that we are sufficiently resilient to not to be able to continue our business as a central bank and regulator of the financial sector. So every day actually fills up very quickly. In fact, most of my days, even for the coming 2021, is already filled with a lot of project discussions, a lot of collaborations with fellow CISOs in other central banks, other government agencies, and things like that. So we have a lot of regular exchanges globally, and this is also one thing that keeps me very motivated, because there's you never stop learning. We can actually learn from best practices elsewhere, how other people have done things, and so on. So it is something that really keeps you moving, very in a very motivated manner and an exciting manner. As for examples, I guess maybe one recent example that is still very well, I wouldn't say recent, it was sometime last year already, but it's actually still fresh on my mind, because we kind of volunteered ourselves for a bug bounty program, we actually invite hackers from all over the world to come attack us. So it's an open invitation. They breach us. There's no penalties and anything. Just so that we test ourselves against all these defenses and all these attackers and cyber threats to see whether we are sufficiently resilient and whether we can really recover. And I can still remember the couple of weeks that we were undergoing the bug bounty program, where we are literally on 24/7 in shift throughout the night, looking at attacks coming from all over the world, and then when really watching the attackers step by step coming, trying to breach our systems, and then warding off. There are even attackers who will actually leave taunting messages on our systems to say, I will shut down your system in 60 seconds, that kind of thing. And imagine if you see a message like that, how are you going to respond in seconds, right? So yeah, it's very exciting, but then it was very rewarding as well. After the program, we actually learned a lot of things, and also how we can respond to things faster, streamline our SOPs, and so on. So yeah, it's really very exciting in this space. Yeah. Thank you.
Pei Yuan, actually for my next question is going to be asking about challenges. And since you just now shared a very interesting example, maybe could you share with us, some of the challenges you face in your role? Maybe you can use the example you shared earlier. So just provide with us the context as well as how eventually we overcome. Or maybe another example, since after the bug bounty.
Yeah, I guess there are plenty of such examples. Just another example I can quote is that during the general election period, we were on heightened alert. But actually, soon after the general election period, we obtained intel that some other parts of the world, some other central banks are under attack, and in fact they got breached, and that caused us to worry. Will the attacker come to us? Will they also target us and breach our system? So again, we actually extended our monitoring, enhanced monitoring, and be more vigilant even after the general elections this year. So to watch out for attacks that could come at MES. And throughout the years, I've been in the industry for about 20 years, and I've been in MES for about half that time. And throughout the 20 years is in cybersecurity. So, I'll come to why I stay in MES for so long later. But it's really back to the question, Bruno, in terms of the challenges and so on. It's really being able to keep up with all these attacks. Fortunately, because of all the efforts that my entire team has put in and so on, we are, I shall say, free of breaches so far, but fingers crossed. But it's a matter of time, as I said just now, because the attacks are getting so sophisticated. Just in recent days, we hear from the news that I'm sure some of the audience here would probably have heard that even the best cybersecurity firms in the world also got breached. They are very good at identifying attacks, finding out what happened, and so on, which imply that they should be good in protecting themselves, but yet they're also breached. So yeah, that's the space of what cybersecurity is all about, really. So I guess again, back to the question about challenges, it's really how we can stay resilient in this kind of very fast-paced environment. Where you just loosen a little bit and you can get a breach that can cause huge repercussions. We're talking about billions of dollars every day in terms of transactions that is flowing through MES. And we're talking about a lot of confidential documents and even secret documents and stuff like that. So a lot is at stake. And therefore, that I'll say challenge. I mean, it can culminate in the form of stress, in a way. But on balance, because it's so rewarding and enriching, and the learning, and I'll come to the culture of MES later. It's really something that keep us motivated, because everybody recognizes the importance of cybersecurity in MES.
So thank you, Pei Yuan, for that. Maybe I'd like to ask Chris, if you could share with us the same question, share with us the challenges you face in your role. If you could provide us a context and also an example so that people can understand the situation a bit better.
Yeah, sure. So a big challenge that I face in my role is how to organize the information that we collect from our FIs. So we collect a lot of information from our FIs as part of our supervision, because we need to know everything what our FIs are doing, to manage cyber risk, and whether what they're doing are effective and efficient. We collect information on their policies, their systems, their controls, their org structure. We get information on what kind of software they're running, even down to the software version that they're running. And all this information changes very quickly, because technology changes very quickly. And so we have to find an efficient way to organize the information keep information updated, and make sense of all this information. I think the good thing is that MES provides us with a lot of opportunities to learn data analytics and visualization solutions to help us address challenges. Our academy, MES Academy, offers a number of such courses. We're also allowed to attend courses offered by third-party providers. So compared to the past when we have to manually organize and trawl through the information, which takes up a lot of our time, it is now much faster for us to make sense of all the information that we collect from our app partners, which leaves us with a lot of time savings for us to engage our app partners.
Thanks for sharing, Chris. So Janice, would you like to share your inputs?
Yes, thanks, Bruno.
Hi, Janice.
Is that I didn't come from a technical background, right?
Hi, Janice. So sorry, Janice. So sorry, we couldn't hear you for the first part. Could you just repeat your response? Yeah.
Right. Thanks. Can you hear me now? Loud and clear?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So I think the biggest challenge for me is that I didn't come from a technical background and have to very much learn on the job. But the good thing though is that we work in a very collaborative environment in MES, and I was able to learn alongside my peers in the department and benefit from the knowledge transfer and their experiences in IT risk supervision, as well as the other cyber initiatives. So for me, based on my background, this would be the biggest challenge.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks for that. So actually, I just want to do a quick shout out to everyone. So I'm just a bit mindful of time. So if you have any questions, feel free to type your questions down in the chat box so that I can post the questions to the panel. Otherwise, I'll just run through the list of questions that we got beforehand. Right. So maybe I just move on to the next question first. I think just now, Pei Yuan touched about the MES culture. So maybe I'd like to invite Pei Yuan again to share a bit more about the culture of MES and also why he chose to join MES instead of cybersecurity is very sexy. There are a lot of roles out there, a lot of companies. So essentially the question is why cybersecurity in MES? Pei Yuan, if you could.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruno. Yeah. So I was briefly touching on it just now. So MES is really a very well, not that I've been in many organizations, but I've been in a fair number. MES is quite unique in the sense that it is actually very nurturing, I'll put it that way, when it comes to, for example, competency developments. So particularly for cybersecurity, for example, there's actually a very robust and I would say deliberate roadmap in place to really groom and grow people and staff in the cybersecurity arena. Really, looking at the developments, what role they play in the team, and then based on the competencies, what kind of certifications they can go for. And we are really an organization where we will invest in talent, invest in grooming people, developing people, bringing them to the next, the best in them so that they can grow in a career and progress. And that's exactly why I'm here, even after 10 years. As what Bruno said, I could well have, easily joined many other places because there's a huge shortage of cybersecurity talent all over the place. But I chose to stay because it's really in this kind of environment that you can grow, mature, as well as advance and deepen your skill sets in. Depending on and cybersecurity is such a broad area where you can be involved in many different aspects. You can be a red teamer, you can be a pen tester, you can be a risk manager, you can be a SOC analyst, you can be many things. And because of MES role and also how in terms of how we need to protect our information assets and so on, we actually have all these broad swath of many different roles where the team can actually rotate and then learn in different aspects and pick up skills in different areas. So all in all, I think as a cybersecurity professional in MES, I think you over the years you can actually be increasingly more and more well-rounded, and depending on your aspirations, you can deepen, you can specialize, or you can broaden, or you can step up to be the the next ISO or whatnot. So it's really very enriching in that sense. And maybe just to add, while say Chris and Janice and myself are all in technology group, but we actually play different roles in the group. A very useful kind of encouragement within MES is actually for job rotation. So my team can actually rotate to Chris and Jenny's team and vice versa. So that, over time we can pick up, and evolve in all the different areas, and then we can, the various MES colleagues can actually sort of choose to decide where they want to be in cybersecurity. So that's actually very useful, I would say, as a culture. And I think Janice and Chris alluded to that as well. We are an organization that is very collegial. We learn from one another, and we are all collaborating in many spaces. There's no I don't know, some of the audience may experience a bit of politicking here and there in your respective organization. I don't see much of the sort in MES.
Okay, so thanks for that, Pei. Maybe I'd like to direct the questions to Chris. Chris, if you could maybe share a little bit about why you chose to stay in MES, and then after we finish these questions, I will actually move on to the live questions. So after Chris and Jenny finish sharing. So Chris, yes, please go ahead.
Sure, definitely echo Pei Yuan's point about MES being a good place to grow and develop as a professional. I will add that I find it really meaningful to work in MES in the public sector. So I joined MES from the private sector, and as compared to my previous role, I now feel that I'm contributing to the nation, doing my part as a Singaporean, and I'm proud to be able to make a difference. I enjoyed working in the financial sector because it is challenging, it's vibrant, it's dynamic, which contributed to the opportunities that we get to grow professionally. And I feel there is a high level of teamwork within MES, collaborate, we share and support one another to achieve a common objective. And I feel the same way today as compared to, say, 9 years ago when I first joined MES. So whether you are a fresh grad or a mid-career professional looking to join MES, I think MES will be a good opportunity for you to grow as a professional. You feel challenged, you will have a lot of opportunity to get exposed to different areas, and I think most importantly, you will find a lot of meaning in your work.
So thanks, Chris. So Janice, same question. Would you like to share your response?
Yes. Just a little background. I spent the first 5 years of my career in the banking sector, and as a regulatee, right? I had always held MES in high regard, not just because MES is the central bank and the financial regulator, but because of how it always takes a carefully considered approach to policy making. So for those dialing in, I think it's also useful to share that at MES we emphasize a lot on the thought process. We often ask ourselves if we had considered the implications and the outcomes of adopting a certain approach, and have rigorous discussions across the organization for the decisions that we make. So I think I have gained a lot of growth with this system of thinking, having been on both sides, right? Both the private and the public sector. I would say this is one of the many things that I find very invigorating working in the public sector. Yeah.
So Janice, hold on. Actually, we have a question for you. Someone actually privately messaged me. So the person actually asked, if you don't mind sharing, which field were you from prior to joining MES? I think you alluded a bit earlier.
Right.
And also, could you share the support that you've gotten from the organization to build up your cybersecurity expertise in the initial years? So so that's the question. So once you're ready, you can share your response.
Yeah. So I was actually working in a local bank in the front office function. So very different from what I'm doing right now. And in fact, my first role in MES was in the international department, right? Supporting our key international engagements all across organizations with our key principals. And being there for about 3 years have actually shed a lot of light about the different functions that we have in MES. And when I say different, they are very different functions. I managed to get a broad overview, and that really helped me think about, where should I go next, So, being, engaging international engagement, I wanted to, specialize in a particular area, gain hard skills and technical skills, and most importantly, participate in policy making. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I'm able to join a technical department, notwithstanding the fact that I did not have a technical background. But I assure you, it is a very steep learning curve, and up to today, I'm still learning. And I think Chris and Pei Yan also mentioned earlier, we have many ways of, we have different avenues of upgrading ourselves, you know, whether it is getting a professional certification, whether it's learning data analytics from our, you know, data analytics department, and all these skills come into play. And also, like Chris mentioned, you know, third party, we have cloud service providers coming to give us training. So that really, you know, help to jumpstart, you know, the knowledge that we need to contribute in this area. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Janice. So
Thanks.
the next question I will actually pose to Pei Yuan. So Pei Yuan, there's a couple of questions. Maybe I read the first one. So the first question is actually, how does MAS deal with national state threat actor?
That's an interesting question. So to us, the threats, as I mentioned just now, can come from really all over the place globally. You know, I shouldn't mention any country names or anything here, but it's really literally coming from all over the place. What we then do is, of course, then observe what they are trying to do. So when they knock on our doors, are they trying to pick the lock? Are they trying to you know, peep through the people? Are they trying to steal information and whatnot? So we really focus a little bit more, or rather a lot more, on what they are trying to do, so that we can preempt and anticipate their next move, and then kind of in a preemptive way stop them in their tracks before they can even go further. In so doing, we do need to attribute or rather determine as far as possible where these attacks are from, whether they are indeed from nation state actors or are they from elsewhere, or is it just a script kiddie just trying their luck, trying to see whether they can deface a website just for a laugh, that kind of thing. So we do try to do attribution, and the main reason why we try to do attribution is because we do have a lot of intelligence and know-how, or rather understanding, in terms of what different threat actor groups do, and what kind of modus operandi they have, what kind of techniques and tools they use, and so on, so that we can actually stay ahead of them rather than behind them. So that's and therefore we need to do attribution to know where they're from and so on. I'm not sure what the angle of the question here is, but that's what we do. But as far as once we know, let's say for example, it's indeed a nation state actor, do we do anything with them? I unfortunately I don't think we can, because and especially in the cyberspace, when a lot of attacks originate from the internet, and there are actually a lot of obfuscation techniques and a lot of ways that you can pretend to be from somewhere when you're actually from somewhere else. I mean, just an example, we do receive phishing attacks from again all over the place, but if we actually go deeper, the different phishing emails, for example, can actually all originate from the same attacker sitting in the basement of somewhere in some country that we never even heard of. So until when you investigate that, so things can happen that way, but the attacks can seem to be from all over the place. So I guess the short answer is that we do attribute attacks to different threat actors, including nation states, and then try to preempt them.
So Pei Yuan, maybe a follow-up question, something similar is also, what's the cybersecurity strategy? Would you like to share what is MAS's cybersecurity strategy?
Well, that is a very big question. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure what the angle is, but as a general framework, we do adopt industry best practices in terms of identification, protection, basically identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and as well as surrounding it, surveillance, testing, and so on. So there are quite well established industry frameworks in terms of what we think about in cybersecurity. And in each of those domains, identification, protection, detection, and so on, that's where we then have, back to the question, strategy surrounding gaps. How do we identify the vulnerabilities and threats that are coming at us? How do we protect against them? How do we detect them if they do really start attacking us? And if breaches do happen, how do we recover? So we do have a lot of initiatives and strategies surrounding each of these different domains. I'm not sure whether that answered the question, but that's in essence our strategy. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Pei Yuan. So I have another question actually. This one I want to direct to Chris. is regarding someone who has worked in the private sector. So he just wants to know, what are the things we need to make considerations when doing a switch? Because he has this view that private sector are actually more flexible and agile in adopting ideas and approach. So he wants to know whether whether is this approach similar in MES. And Chris, earlier you said you were from the FI, so probably you'll be the best person to take this question.
Yeah, so indeed the approaches for private and public sector are quite different at times. And that's because in our organization, in the public sector, a lot of considerations have to be made to make sure that the decisions that we made are robust. So in the financial sector, for example, whenever we made a decision, we have to consider the impact of that decision on not just FIs, but also FIs customers, ourselves, and the different types of FIs, different types of customers, in fact. So there are not just banks, there's also insurers, stock exchanges, capital market services licensees. When it comes to customers, there's the consumer, the retail customers, there's the corporate customers. So our decision can potentially have a big impact on a lot of different areas in the financial sector. And hence we need to make sure that whatever decision we made is carefully thought through and that it balances between the impact that it will result in, as well as the appropriateness of the decision. Now, I do not think that anyone joining MES from the private sector needs to make a lot of changes in terms of thinking, or in fact, take on additional courses just to prepare you for that journey. I think when you join MES, you will still soon very, very fast learn that the culture in MES is such that we need to make sure that we need to put in a lot of thought and effort on making sure that we get the decision right.
All right. So thank you, Chris. So now I'm actually going to pose a question back to Pei Yuan again. So Pei Yuan, there's a question, there's two questions. Essentially, I thought you'd be the best person to answer. So the first question is really, is there any priority or any premium placed on certification, or what type of certification should you get to make yourself very valuable in this space? That's the easy one. The second question, which is a bit broader, so it's asking about the digital banks. So the question is, what is MES going to do to ensure strict cyber security measures on these digital banks? So maybe you can take the first one, then you can take the second one. So the first question again is, what certification is important for this space?
Yeah, thanks, Bruno. For the first question, I think certifications are indeed, well, maybe let me put it this way. They're important insofar as demonstrating some basic understanding of the different domains of cybersecurity. So especially for new hires or for people who have not been in the cybersecurity space and then intend to switch and so on, certifications provide that some fundamentals in terms of the understanding and so on. So I would say that we do especially when we hire and so on, we do look out for people who, or rather we prefer that people have, the applicant have certifications such as CISSP, CISM, CISA, and so on, depending on the role that they play in. As I said, cybersecurity is a broad a spectrum of many different functions. So it depends on the function that they play. Different certifications are useful, and there are some general certifications that are useful across, like CISSP, for example.
Thank you, Pei Yuan. So the second question, don't worry, I think Chris is more appropriate because he deals with the FI again. So maybe, unless you want to share, you have anything to share on that? For the
I was about to say for the second question, maybe Chris and Janice can take it.
Chris, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, on how we supervise digital banks?
Yes, what's the consideration and what's the current thought?
So it is more important for digital banks to be cyber resilient, if you will, because they don't have brick and mortar bank branches, and they rely a lot on technologies to deliver online financial services. But that said, the level of cyber risks that they face isn't that different from the likes of the traditional brick and mortar banks. They similarly are exposed to the risk of cyber attacks, similarly exposed to, say, insider attacks. So I think these digital banks will have to make sure that they build up their cyber security capabilities within the organization, starting with the people, making sure that the right people, making sure that they have the right expertise and skill sets within the organization. And then they have to make sure that their framework, policies, and standards are mature. I think the key concern that we may have is whether, because they don't have the traditional DNA in financial sector, whether the DNA that they have or they bring across from other sectors are good enough, whether the standards are commensurate with the level of risk that they face. So it's not an easy job for them, and they will have to put in a lot of efforts to make sure that they meet the standards in the financial sector.
Okay, so thanks for that, Chris. So maybe I got the question for Pei Yuan again. So sorry, seems like a lot of questions are for you. So this question is actually on today's threat intelligence, whether it's open source or paid service, which is more effective, open source or paid service, and do we consider it a marketing hype, or does it really deliver value to us?
Maybe just maybe I'll answer the second part. Whether it delivers value to us, actually it depends on how we use it. I'll put it that way. So we do need to have a way and structure surrounding how we use the threat intelligence. I think I guess the question is coming from the angle that there's actually a lot of threat intelligence out there, be it open source or paid and so on. What's the best way or most effective way to make use of those? That's actually something that the entire cybersecurity community, or a large an area that the cybersecurity community is actually also collaborating on, in terms of how best do we collaborate with one another to share threat intelligence and make effective use of those. So I guess the long and short answer is really that is cyber threat intelligence useful? Yes, certainly, whether paid or open source, they are useful in themselves. But because of the volume of the velocity of how all this threat intelligence come in and so on, every organization, MES ourselves included, needs to have a way of digesting those information to be able to churn out informed outcomes or informed recommendations in terms of what do we then do. Intelligence is only useful when they're actionable. Otherwise, it's just head knowledge, and if you don't do anything about it, then it's actually just meaningless. So the important thing is really how to translate all those threat intelligence into something actionable. And that's something that, for example, within MES ourselves need is constantly enhancing and so on. In fact, just before this call, we just came from another discussion earlier in terms of how we have been using different platforms in order to consolidate, analyze all the different threat intelligence in a single place, so that as an outcome, it helps streamline our workflows and processes. So as a quick example, for example, in terms of IOCs, indicator of compromise hunting, again, threat intelligence come from all over the place. How do we then effectively search for those IOCs in the environment? And if they are not found, good, but if they are found, how do we then quickly respond and make sure the IOCs and how they come into our environment, how we can arrest them sooner, and then block them at the right places. So I think this entire work stream and workflow in terms of how we do all this is crucial in terms of how we use threat intel. But the short answer is threat intel useful, whether paid or unpaid? Yes, they are useful.
So maybe on the same line of threat intel, probably a last question because we're running out of time. I'd like to pose to Janice. It's regarding whether MES shares these threat intels with global stakeholders in the international flora, and if we do, what kind of benefits do we get out of sharing this information?
Sorry, Bruno, it was intermittent. Could you repeat the question?
So the question is regarding the threat intelligence information. Does MES share this information with the international community? And if we do, what's the value for Singapore? Like, what's the benefit Singapore gets out of this sharing with the international community?
Right. I think I always use this analogy, right? We have bad guys collaborating, at every stage of the cyber attack kill chain, right? A threat actor might, steal credentials and pass it on to the next threat group. And so I think we are strong advocate for cyber information sharing, whether in terms of best practices, our supervisory approach, I mean, the good guys have to cooperate, right? So I think there are definitely considerations around protecting, our cyber security information, and there are ways to safeguard those interests, national interests, and yet still find trusted channels to share that information. So, cyber threats knows no borders, right? It could reach us by a matter of seconds. And so there is definitely benefit in sharing this information amongst the financial regulator and within the financial sector, given the makeup of our financial system. Yeah.
All right, so thank you, Janice. Also, thank you, Pei Yuan, Chris, and Janice for joining this session today. There are other questions relating to what we look out for in MES and how to join us. So that one I will take in my next slide. Tejas, can I get my next slide? So really, we come to the end of the session, and I hope it was insightful and provided a lot of information for all of you to consider, especially if you're considering a career in cybersecurity as well as in MES. So over here on this slide, you actually see 3 different routes for different needs. The first, the one that joined us today, is the most direct, which is for you to check out our existing job vacancies and then make an application directly through the QR code. So once you scan the QR code, you'll be directed straight to our website with all the roles that we have at this point in time. The second route is actually for those who want to join us, but maybe not immediately, but at a later timing. So we created a chat bot to interact with candidates who want to share their skill sets and CVs with us. So the information will be used whenever a new role comes up and we need specific skill sets. So we'll get a recruiter like myself to contact you. And if the timing is right, you could make that move to MAS as well. So it's kind of like a community where you can drop your skill sets. You can share with us your skill sets as well as the CVs. The last round is really for the fresh graduates, the students. We do have a graduate officer program. We also have a chatbot there to handle the applications. So just want to share that the process there are several rounds of assessment, including a group case challenge, interviews with the departments of the candidate's choice. And if you're interested in cybersecurity, of course, you can choose the relevant departments in both Pei Yuan's as well as Chris and Janice's departments. So with this, I've come to the end of the session. I've enjoyed speaking to all of you, and I'm sure the panel as well. On behalf of them, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this session. I hope the feeling between the 4 of us and the audience is mutual as well. So have a good day ahead, and hopefully enjoy the Singapore FinTech Festival. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.